Biden had an all hands on deck meeting with Jeff Zients, like all staff, all hands. Biden also started talking to top Democratic Party officials, finally, after like a tumultuous week of post-debate conversations urging him to drop out, including the New York Times and even some active Democratic Party members, even, you know, seated representatives and the like. And obviously when the New York Times reporting came in earlier today, a couple hours ago, about key allies, Brandon tells key allies he might drop out, I thought, oh, it's gonna happen. However, it turns out that the malignant narcissist who personally believes that he is like always down and out, but a tough fighter nonetheless, is not dropping out. He has said since that call, President Biden on campaign call that just wrapped per person on the call, let me say this as clearly as I possibly can, simply and straightforward as I can. I am running. No one's pushing me out. I'm not leaving. I'm in this race to the end and we're going to win. Also, simultaneously while that's happening, a new New York Times CNN post-debate poll shows Trump widening his lead among likely voters nationally by 3 percentage points. Trump is now at 49%. Biden is at 43%. It is Trump's largest ever lead in a Times poll. Also, his approval rating. Biden has hit an all-time worst approval rating again. 56.9% disapproval, 37.2% approval rating. That is crazy. Okay. Oh, yeah. If Biden loses, it's nobody's fault but the DNC's. I mean, we said that with Hillary Clinton, and look where that got us. This Biden stuff is giving RBG vibes? Yes. And once again, just like with RBG, just like with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, just like with Dianne Feinstein, the left, myself included, have been literally talking about this even before Biden ran in 2020. I've been talking about how old Biden is and how he's going to drop the incumbents advantage because he's so old by the time 2024 rolls around. Lo and behold, it's 2024 and we're watching it happen, watching it unfold in front of our eyes in the absolute most catastrophic way possible. Classic situation where once again we were right just too early. We'll talk about RFK Jr. Don't worry. Let's continue with this.
CNN breaking news.
Breaking news, CNN has learned President Biden has privately acknowledged a series of critical tests are ahead in the next stretch of days. Those tests essential to determining whether he can stay in the race for the White House. CNN White House correspondent MJ Lee joining us now. MJ, what more are you learning?
This is the problem. Biden has presented himself as this like underdog over and over again, and it's just a lie. Like this motherfucker is all this whole narrative that he's trying to put together is like he's the underdog always. When he gets knocked down, he gets back up again, and they're never gonna put him down. You know, that kind of shit. The Chumbawamba. Look at the 2020 look at the 2020 election. Look at the 2022 midterms. Like none of that was because of Biden's dynamic, charismatic personality. We looked at a poll yesterday, 67% of Americans say they want to vote against Trump. 67% of Biden, like likely Biden voters, say they're voting against Trump, and 33% say they're voting for Biden. That percentage is damn near identical to 2020. That wasn't because Brandon was the guy, even though MSNBC and CNN and all these other liberal institutions that are fraudulent and did not want Bernie Sanders because they were terrified of even moderate social democratic progress, wanted to put an institutional cadaver in a position of power instead, and constantly presented Joe Biden as the guy who can beat Trump, the only guy who can beat Trump. But at the time, the polls showed the exact same reality. No one was voting for Biden because he was a dynamo. No one was voting for Biden because they genuinely love Biden. People were voting for return to normalcy. People were voting for competency. And throughout the past 4 years, Joseph Robinette Biden demonstrated slowly but surely that he is, you know, his faculties are diminished and it's not actually normal. It's not business as usual. And also that he is kind of incompetent. That's one of the biggest aspects. That's the biggest selling point for Brandon. Ideology that is causing people to go out and vote for him. It's just like they want competency and they want a Democrat because Trump represents chaos, and you know Biden is an old school politician. In 2020 they still saw all of that and were voting against Donald Trump. 2024 comes around, those percentages haven't moved. That does not spell people love the past 4 years of the Brandon administration. If you're in power for 4 years and people are still like, yeah, I guess I'm voting against Donald Trump, then, you know, you haven't really done much, or rather, you haven't really communicated what you've done well enough. Both of these things are true to a certain degree. That's where we're at with the situation.
Now, interestingly, I'm also told that in this private conversation yesterday, the president was also chastened and blamed himself, not his staff, for his poor debate performance. He said, I have done too much foreign policy, according to this ally that I spoke with, and he acknowledged that the back-to-back foreign trips that he had leading up to Thursday night's debate had been a mistake. We, of course, heard the president saying that at a fundraiser.
Yeah, also claiming that you're the underdog when you're the incumbent president running for re-election is so funny. That's literally also very Trumpian, which is seemingly what the Brandon re-election campaign has been so far. Turn orange, bring your dumbass fail son into the White House with like meetings, inappropriately bringing them into meetings with staffers, and also incredibly reactionary immigration policy. And last but not least, portray yourself as the underdog. Donald Trump in his re-election kept trying to present himself as an outsider. He kept trying to be like, I'm gonna make America great again. It's like, bro, you already were the president. Like, you're still the president right now. What do you mean make America great again? And then they tried to fucking revamp it and try to do CAG, keep America great, and that didn't work. So then he went back to make America great again. And it's like, okay, so you're admitting that ain't great. Like, that was a swing and a miss for the Trump administration. And that's the thing, like, you can't really present yourself as an underdog when you're running as an incumbent. You just have to rest on the laurels of your success.
And as you mentioned, there are other efforts coming in the campaign, in the White House as well, as a lot of folks, a lot of staffers, aides that are working in the campaign in the White House are really worried about the future of the 2024 campaign. We know that White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients also had a White House aides call trying to bring some sort of reassurance given the events of the last several days. And we are expecting here White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre to take the podium any minute. And of course, all of this is coming with the new reporting that President Biden has privately acknowledged to an ally that he understands that the next couple of days, the next stretch of days is going to be incredibly important in terms of whether or not he can actually save his candidacy. And what I think is interesting, Boris, to note is that we are seeing the president finally starting to get a little bit more involved himself in the conversations that he is having in private with lawmakers. He is, of course, hosting some Democratic governors who had expressed concerns about his age and the viability of his candidacy. And then, of course, there's that big interview that he is doing on Friday with ABC News, not to mention the press conference that the White House has been talking about that he will participate in next week at the NATO summit. So we'll see how the White House answers.
This is so funny because he's going to knock out the ABC interview. He might have like one kind of off moment, but he's going to cook up the ABC interview, and then every one of the most annoying Democratic Party mouthpieces are going to chirp about it endlessly. Meanwhile, it's not going to move the needle. 80% of the country think he's too old. What a ridiculous crock of shit this is, dude. The only reason why Biden isn't dropping out currently is because it's not even that he wants to go through the finish line, it's that he wants to qualify. They're trying to push his through the qualifiers so that he can't be a replacement, so that there's no contest, that there's no replacement opportunity whatsoever, and every day that passes by is another day wasted. The thing is, if you've been watching this, as I have, and as many in this community has, you already know that they've been running the clock. The problem is now the media can't hide it any longer. They're not even interested in hiding it any longer. They're just lasering him. And that's the problem now for the Democratic Party and for the Biden re-election. Their campaign strategy thus far quite literally was to stop Biden from having too many press moments because they knew what it was. They knew that they were rolling out a carcass. By the way, that was the campaign strategy for the 2020 election as well, the primaries. And then he won the election because COVID happened. Like, God was helping him. It wasn't just Jim Clyburn. It was God, okay? It was a once in a lifetime biblical style like pandemic epidemiological incident, dude. What are we talking about? I've never seen someone get so many hard carries. And then Roe v. Wade happens. Finally, Donald Trump Supreme Court turns around and actually follows through on their 35-year project, their 40-year project, their massive commitment to undermining women's bodily autonomy. And then the midterms that are supposed to be a red wave because of negative real wage growth that Americans experienced for 2 years for the most part, all of a sudden turns into a battle for civil liberties and bodily autonomy for women. Boom. Another hard carry. Not a single one of these instances was Joe Biden's doing. Joe Biden is not God. He didn't make COVID. Joe Biden is not himself securing the South Carolina primary vote. Joe Biden won Super Tuesday after getting carried by the entire Democratic Party primary candidates dropping out to endorse him after phone calls from Barack Obama. He got carried by Obama in that situation. So no, I think people need to recognize something fundamentally important here. It's not just that Joe Biden is old. Joe Biden is a failure. Like personally, sure, his administration I would consider to be significantly more progressive, with the exception of Israel. Do not start with that. Obviously, but on the domestic front, Joe Biden is probably one of the most pro-labor contemporary politicians out there, if not the most pro-labor. These are statements that I felt confident making before October 7th. On moments where we talk about labor policy, on moments where we talk about like Biden's domestic policy prescriptions, with the exception of immigration, which is yet another insane flub from Brandon because he's an absolute dumbass. Ultimately, beyond the legislative agenda being more progressive than Barack Obama's, even by a wide margin, especially as it pertains to labor, ultimately he's a bad politician, dude. He's not a good politician. He was floated into the VP position because he's a gaffe guy, because he was known for kissing babies as a retail politician and doing gaffes. He was a goofy, somewhat racist old white guy. And if you recall, as I have told you, vice presidential picks are supposed to be a good counter. What are your areas of weakness? If you're Barack Hussein Obama, well, it's the fact that you're black. That's a pretty big hurdle for a lot of white supremacist Americans to clear. And when I say white supremacist Americans, I'm not saying like the Klan robe wearers, okay? I'm saying like your uncle or your grandparents who never forgave Obama for fucking up the country. That's because he was black. They hated him because he was black. That's it. I hate him for good reasons. They hate him because he's black and Kenyan and a Muslim. I love him because he's Kenyan and Muslim. My point is, Biden was elevated to the position of VP, which gave him the additional bona fides, the additional confidence from the black voting bloc in South Carolina as Obama's vice president. But the real reason why he was picked as Obama's vice president, another moment of elevation in his political career, full of L's. Anytime Biden has put himself out there on his own, he's taken L's. Specifically on pure politics, Joe Biden is a bad politician because he is a hack. What do I mean by this? Comedians who are hacks do one thing. They repeat bottom of the barrel, lowest common denominator jokes. Politicians who are hacks do a similar thing in the realm of politics. They look at focus testing and they go for smack dab in the middle of that and consistently retriangulate their position right into the center. That is Biden to a T. A nonsensical, idiotic loser. His entire career is riddled with finding the center and dialing the in. Are we actually, except for Israel, that is a weird ideological commitment that he has to Israel. Biden and his motivations can perhaps be best understood in a not so dissimilar way to Donald Trump. Narcissism. He feels like he has been treated wrong and been called a loser his entire political career. And that's because he is a loser. He was a loser when in 2016, Barack Obama called him up and said, "Don't run, Joe." Now, I go back on that because I think in 2016, if Joe Biden was a candidate, Donald Trump would not have been president. But that's besides the point. We're not going to talk about that right now. But when Barack Obama called him up and said, "Hey, Joe, you don't want to finish third place behind Hillary Clinton, or you don't want to finish third place behind Bernie Sanders in a Iowa motel. You know, your son just died. Take a day off. Don't do this. You don't want to get that call that you got third place in a goddamn Iowa motel sitting in an empty conference room." That's what Obama told him. So he dropped out in 2016. Big mistake for America. Big mistake for the Democratic Party. That's besides the point. You know, I apologize. I was also an advocate for Joe Biden dropping out. But, you know, looking back at it now, obviously it's much easier. Hindsight is 2020. Joe Brandon would have absolutely if he became the candidate, he absolutely would have destroyed Donald Trump. 2016 Joe Brandon. Overall, he lost. He ran for president time and time again since the fucking 80s, and he lost. He got elevated to vice president, used that momentum to try to run for president again 2016. His own president said, don't do that. And he dropped out. 2020, he runs after Charlottesville. Charlottesville really motivated him. You know, he's like, oh, I'm going to defeat American Nazism, whatever the he's saying. No, the real reason why he ran was because he's a narcissistic piece of shit. And as much as we joke about Hillary Clinton, it's my time, it's her time, it's her time. That's precisely the reason why Joe Brandon ran. Because he said, I've been a career institutionalist. I'm going to get my licks in. And that's precisely what happened. And that's precisely the reason why he's not dropping out today. I need you to understand. The reason why he's not dropping out today is because in his mind, he is very, and I mean very thin-skinned about the way people are treating him currently. He is in that situation no different than Donald Trump. It's all ego. Because if democracy was really on the ballot, as I have said time and time again, if democracy truly was on the ballot, you really think we have to preserve the ego of a 850-year-old carcass, a cadaver? So which is it? Is Donald Trump not actually going to destroy American democracy? Theoretical democracy. America's never really had a real democracy, let's be real. But is Donald Trump going to eviscerate the remainder of civil liberties and turn the tide and finally bring forth the Fourth Reich? Because while the Nazis lost in World War II, fascism did win, and America has been carrying that torch for many, many years. And Trump will be the finalizer. The great conquest of the Fourth Reich will come with Donald Trump's second term. As I was saying, if democracy is on the ballot, then we cannot succumb to the narcissistic desires and the vindictive, selfish, petulant attitude of a demented, senile person. It's one or the other. Is democracy actually on the ballot? Because if so, we can't do that. Or are we actually saying it's his turn again? He's done so much. Don't hurt his little feelings. He's done so much for America. He's been a senator for 700 years. He was there when the founding happened. He was one of the original framers in the background. So he deserves to be president. And if that's your attitude, then you can't say Donald Trump is going to destroy this country. Okay? You can't. Because if the stakes are that high, you have to meet the stakes. You can't just roll out the cadaver and be like, listen, 80% of the country says, 80% of Democrats say he needs to go, but we're just not going to listen to them. We're going to put forward a weaker candidate. And we're talking about this as Trump expands his lead over Biden after debate as age worries grow. Wall Street Journal poll finds the byline, the former president, or not byline, the subtitle, the former president is now ahead by 6 points with 80% of voters saying the incumbent is too old to run. 80% of voters. That's why I said this is a repeat of 2016, not a repeat of 2020. It's a repeat in 2016 in many ways. Many of the voters said Hillary Clinton is unlikable. Hillary Clinton, a lot of people are not going to vote for her. Hillary Clinton doesn't go to Wisconsin. What the f is that about? And Hillary Clinton was doing much better in the polls in 2016. Biden is not. Biden has been consistently losing consistently. Biden's approval rating is in the shitter. What percentage do we have to get to where the Democratic Party does the right thing? Does it have to be 90%? Does it have to be 92%? Does it have to be 99%? Or will it matter if it's 100% of voters? If the Democratic Party does not listen to the calls from the voters at 80%, they're not going to listen to it at 100%.
And Jeff, you have new reporting that privately a growing number of Democrats want Biden to drop out of the race, some as early as this week.
Boris, there has been a really growing swell of sentiment that it is time to move on with this. We've heard a bit of it publicly from Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas, and many others behind the scenes are saying a similar thing, that it is time, yes, they respect and appreciate the president's record, but it is also time to really see what is going on here. Now, the president, we are told in his campaign, both Jeff Zients, the White House chief of staff, as MJ was saying, and the campaign manager, they're hosting separate staff calls and trying to urge people to stay focused. Hard to stay focused, though, of course, on this when there are these growing calls. The most important meeting of the day, that lunch that is going on right now with the president and the vice president, and that meeting of governors this evening. Democratic governors flying to Washington, virtually all of them, all of the main ones, some of them who could be considered also candidates to meet with the president. So you get the sense, the feeling that so much has changed in 24 hours. Patience is wearing very thin, and time is running out to make something of a move. However, it is still Biden's decision to make. So as MJ was saying, I'm told privately, he has said that he does not want to drag down the Democratic ticket, but has not yet reached the point of making a decision.
Yeah, time is of the essence when making this kind of decision. There's actually
time is of the essence, and the Democratic Party knows that, and that's why they're literally pushing it. They're pushing it closer and closer to convention, and even trying to literally figure out ways of like announcing the presidential bid before the convention, because their goal right now isn't to get Brandon over the finish line. Their goal right now is to get Brandon over the convention where he accepts the nomination, so that it is the point of no return. Donald Trump is ahead of President Biden by 6 percentage points among likely voters in a new national survey. Overall, 74% of voters view him as too old for the job, an uptick since the debate. If the 2024 presidential election were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Joe Biden or Donald Trump? 43% of likely voters say Biden, 49% say Trump. Of registered voters, 41% say they would vote for Biden, 49% say Trump. Oh my God. Donald J. Trump is in the lead. I get knocked back, but I get up again, Jack. Hey guys, I'm new to this politics thing, so forgive me for asking this, but is this good? Is it good when the incumbent president has historically high disapproval ratings, and seemingly the entire country sees him go on the debate stage against a very unpopular former president, and then the incumbent president actually loses popularity against the former president that he actually literally defeated to become the incumbent president? Is that good? I can't tell. I'm not like, I didn't go to Georgetown, so, I barely got a poli-sci degree. The f do I know? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's a lot of wonks right now in Joe Brandon's ear being like, no, King, this is good. This is so good. Everybody loves you. Holy moly. Doubts about Mr. Biden's age and acuity are widespread and growing. A majority of every demographic, geographic, and ideological group in the poll, including black voters and those who said they will still be voting for him, believe Mr. Biden, 81, is too old to be effective. Overall, 84% of voters view him as too old for the job, up 5 percentage points since the debate. Concerns about Mr. Biden's age have spiked 8 percentage points among Democrats in the week since the debate to 59%. The share of independent voters who said they felt that way rose to 79%, nearly matching the Republican view of the president. I mean, you don't need independents, right, to win an election, I think, right? Trump campaign statement on total collapse of the Democrat Party. Every Democrat who's calling on crooked Joe Biden to quit was once a supporter of Biden and his failed policies that lead to extreme inflation, an open border, and chaos at home and abroad. See, this is how you know. This is how you know how unpopular Biden is. Because the Democratic Party is not unpopular. I can't believe I'm saying this. Democratic policies have always been popular. Progressive policies have always been phenomenally popular. But right now we're in a unique place where the Democratic Party across the board is not unpopular, but Joe Biden is. So Trump is trying to make it hurt for the down ballot Democratic candidates. This is low key, no different than the strategy that I have begged the Democrats to do for years and years, and they finally started doing it a little bit, only to dial it back. Say the MAGA party is the Republican Party. Democrats and tie the entirety of the Republican Party to Donald Trump, because that is the truth. The entire Republican Party is, of course, Donald Trump's party. Donald Trump is a manifestation of like Republicans' worst, not instincts, but like worse aspects, worse motivations. He just looked at the situation and said, oh, I got to say this out loud. These dumbasses, these pussies are not saying the quiet part out loud. If I say it, people love me for it. And they did. It's not like he changed the game up. Make no mistake that Democrats, the mainstream media, and the swamp colluded to hide the truth from the American public. Joe Biden is weak, failed, dishonest, and not fit for the White House. Every one of them has lied about Joe Biden's cognitive state and supported the disastrous policies over the past 4 years, especially cackling co-pilot Kamala Harris. Oh, that's how you know he thinks Kamala is going to be the new pick. He's starting to hit Mamala. The criticism against Mamala was muted for the most part because she just sucks. And she was irrelevant, She was just doing it to herself, basically, by just, talking about wheels on the bus go round and round, becoming like a joke, basically. So what is he doing here? He's not even shitting on Joe. That part is established. He's saying everyone's shitting on Joe in America. And he's right. Everyone's on Joe, but remember, the real enemies are the Democratic Party, because they love Joe. They support Joe. They're bad just like Joe. So it's established that Joe sucks. He's shitting the Democratic Party and who he foresees will be replacing Joe. This is important to understand. President Trump will beat any Democrat on November 5th because he has a proven record and an agenda to make America great again.
Jamie, is it clear to you, I mean, who the alternative to President Biden would be? I mean, you heard Congressman Clyburn saying, you can't pass over Vice President Harris, that she would be the person.
Right. And she has rejected calls for President Biden to step aside, which would be very inappropriate as his vice president. Look, some of our sources think that Vice President Harris would have an edge. But other party leaders we talked to are already floating the idea of opening it up to all contenders, having, let's call it a 5-week speed dating primary, maybe having debates between now and the convention.
Oh my God, that'd be so sick.
And then leaving it up to the convention. Their number one concern, who can beat Donald Trump, Anderson.
I decided to travel around the world a couple of times shortly before the debate, he said. I didn't listen to my staff, and then I almost fell asleep on stage. Biden did travel back and forth to France, Italy, and California the first half of June, but he returned to D.C. 11 days before the debate.
Wait, are you kidding me? Bro, I thought he flew right from France. Dude, are you insane? Oh my God, bro, I thought he snuck a couple flights in there or something that I wasn't aware of. Bro, that is insane, dude. 11 days in DC prepping for the debate. Dude, that's crazy, dude. Bro, what are they doing? What are the Democrats doing? That's our defense. Also here, Elon is fact-checking Kamala Harris, never deleting this app, says America First, Unfiltered Patriot, MAGA. Kamala Harris says Donald Trump would ban abortion nationwide. President Joe Biden and I will do everything in our power to stop him and restore women's reproductive freedom. He clearly said he would not do so in the debate. Fact check, dude.
If we finally beat Medicare.
And the White House press secretary had a different explanation for Thursday's debacle.
The president had a cold. He had a cold and a bad night.
She insisted Biden is not suffering from something more serious.
He can do the job. He can.
But even as she spoke, a New York Times report was taking Washington by storm, citing White House and foreign officials who said Biden has, quote, increasingly appeared confused or listless, and even sometimes seems to freeze up. On Tuesday, Texas Congressman Lloyd Doggett became the first Democratic lawmaker to call on Biden to step aside.
The president cannot make the kind of effort that we need in these closing days to prevent Trump and his gang from taking over.
And now other Democrats are opening up about their concerns.
Like a lot of people, I was pretty horrified.
We have to be honest with ourselves that it wasn't just a horrible night.
You can see it. The dam is breaking, a Biden donor told CBS News. There are nonstop phone, email, and text conversations going on as donors toss.
I think one of the strategies that the Democrats actually applied after the debate was literally do mass blast fundraising for Brandon, because my phone has not stopped blowing up, dude. I've probably got more than 150 text messages from every Democrat trying to fundraise for Joe. Like, it is crazy out here. And I think they wanted to get some kind of momentum, do a Biden blast and get some kind of momentum so they could be like, see, we raised a lot of money. That sucks.
Around names of possible replacements, veteran Congressman Jim Clyburn said the vice president should be the only alternative if Biden steps aside.
This party should not in any way do anything to work around Ms. Harris. We should do everything we can to bolster her, whether it's in second place or at the top of the ticket.
Bro, this dude is allergic. He's just allergic to having good opinions. I swear to God. He just sucks so much. I hate him. God damn, he sucks, bro.
In a brief interview with CBS News, Vice President Harris said this.
Look, Joe Biden is our nominee. We beat Trump once, and we're going to beat him again. Period.